The Cellcast is recorded in front of a live streaming audience.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cellcast. Plus, joining me today is a man who, well, I was going to make a joke about, the Frankenstein, where embarrassed by his name, but I can't think of a funny way to mispronounce Aaron. Haran, maybe?
No, it sounds terrible.
That sounds horrible.
That sounds horrible.
Welcome, Jacob.
Why, thank you. Let me introduce our co-host. Oh, a man who loves the sound of a horse whinnying in the morning. Welcome, Drew.
Anyway, I can say this much without spoiling anything. If you do not give money to us on Patreon or hang out in our live chat, you just missed what that was a joke reference to. So yeah, this is a live action movie review, a one I've been trying to make you watch for 5 years.
Yeah. So you finally did it.
I finally found a way to force you to watch this film.
It's against my will. It's against my will.
Yeah, and it was against your will for a good reason.
I love this movie.
We are reviewing tonight Young Frankenstein. By it's Mel Brooks. Well, it was written by Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder.
Yes.
In fact, this was actually Gene Wilder's idea.
I remember something about that. Yeah.
So that's what we are reviewing tonight. Trying to vamp until the music stops.
Vamping.
Anyway, so yeah, let's just go ahead and jump into our spoiler-free thoughts on this.
Yes.
Certified fresh and spoiler-free.
I cannot tell you how many times I've watched this film. Guys, this was a tradition with me and my dad. We watched this film every year for nearly 20 years. I've seen the film a number of times to the point where the jokes are probably old for me right now. So you're laughing at this because you've never seen it before. Me, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that joke.
It was funny once.
It's funny now. It's just, it's not laugh out loud funny because I know it's coming. That's the weird part about this.
Yeah.
It's still a good film. Do not get me wrong.
Yeah.
But strangely enough, the comedy may have died for me. Just because of how many how many repeated viewings I've had of this film.
Yeah. You've become so numb to it.
There are still some cute things.
Yeah.
But I've gotten to the point where all the background jokes that you probably missed, I've caught them all.
Yeah.
So there's nothing more for the film to give me that's new. So
you've given up on the film.
I didn't give up on the film. This is still going to get a fairly decent rating from me.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I have seen this film a number of times. There is some sexual innuendo in this.
A little.
More than you think, I think, because I think you might have missed a couple that we'll talk about later.
Maybe.
If you get a chance to watch it again, just look at the chalkboard and exactly how he's drawing the brain, and you tell me what that looks like.
Oh, okay.
Just saying.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I've seen this a number of times. I do find it funny, but it's gotten a bit old as many times as I've seen it. I probably need a long break or to watch it with somebody who's not seen it in a while. If we'd have had a chance to watch this together, I think we would have both gotten a kick out of it.
Oh, yeah.
But that's just not how our schedules work.
True.
So, yeah, this is one of my favorites.
Nice. Like I've said before, this is the first time viewing this. I had heard of Young Frankenstein over and over again. I remember watching another Mel Blanc's films, Blazing Saddles, when I was younger. Mel Brooks. That's what I meant to say, of course.
Mel Blanc's not in this film.
No, he's not. Like, he's not voicing a character at all. No.
Nope.
No whatsoever. Mel Brooks films, I've seen a few of his, and I instantly like, oh my gosh, these are funny. And my good brother, my podcast buddy, kept like wanting to throttle me. It's like, watch the stupid movie already.
I don't remember when it was. I assume it was probably the first time that I ever Cloris Leachman was ever on here, because I made the Frau Blucher joke, and you had no idea.
No, I had no idea what that
was.
means. No idea.
And I have intentionally made sure to keep that joke up coming up every time Cloris Leachman has been on this.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I think this movie and one other is all we've got left, unless we happen to watch another live action film with her in it.
Yeah, so I be like, there again, I watched it on Tuesday, the night you gave it to me.
Yeah.
And I've been so busy working on art pieces and projects and the whole bit. Haven't had the time to sit down and actually watch it. So I finally got around to watching the rest of it. And this movie honestly is cracky. It cracked me up so much. There again, I was talking with some colleagues at work, and I mentioned, I was like, oh yeah, I just finished watching this film. Be like, you have to watch it another time to catch everything in this film.
Oh yeah.
And I definitely can see that. But overall, I enjoy the mess out of this film. Like, yes, is there some sexual innuendos? Is there maybe things that might be a little inappropriate for younger people? Yes. Is it an enjoyable film? Yes. It is a amazing homage to cinema from the 1930s and 40s. Absolutely. Would I recommend this film? Absolutely. This is a wonderful film. I might have to borrow it again to rewatch it.
Unless you happen to go to Walmart and saw it on a Black Friday sale. But considering how bad Walmart's selection is right now, I don't know if they've kind of have a Black Friday sale.
Who knows?
On any movies anymore.
That is true, because last year they had nothing. But I did enjoy this movie tremendously. Highly recommended to anybody. Again, thank you for putting that worm in my ear to watch this movie
and putting my foot down on what we were watching this month.
Yes, you did. It's okay, fine. I'll watch this, goofy comedy. And then I remember, oh yeah, Blazing Saddles. I really enjoyed the movie. Is it appropriate? Absolutely not. But is it funny? Heck yeah.
All right. Why don't we go ahead and jump into the spoiler-filled section of this review then?
All right.
The following is a spoiler-filled review for the film Young Frankenstein. Listener discretion is advised. Young Frankenstein was written and directed by Mel Brooks, who also wrote and directed Robin Hood, Men in Tights, Spaceballs, and of course, as you said, Blazing Saddles.
Yes.
It was also written by Gene Wilder. It was based on the novel Frankenstein, loosely, by Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. Although really, I think it's more of a sequel to that story more than anything else. I would say it's also an adaptation of the or it's definitely in the vein of the Universal Frankenstein films, but it's not quite in canon with those either, from my understanding. So
gotcha.
It's spiritual successor to all these things. Getting into the cast, of course, we've got Gene Wilder as playing Dr. Frederick Frankenstein, or Frankenstein, depending on what half of the movie we're watching. And he was, of course, Willy Wonka and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Peter Boyle plays the monster. And on Everybody Loves Raymond, he played Frank Barone, where in one Halloween episode, he dressed up as the monster.
Well, the funny thing is, like watching this film, because there again, I didn't know he was in this film.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's the old dude from that show.
Yeah.
I was totally blown away with it. I was like, oh, cool. Go ahead.
Right. Marty Feldman plays Igor. And I'll put it this way. This is the main thing I know him from, this movie. He's a British comedian.
Yes.
And apparently in the movie Silent Movie, which is another Mel Brooks film, which is literally a silent movie, except for one line that's actually voiced by a famous mime, which is hilarious. But in that movie, he played a character named Marty Eggs.
Marty Eggs.
And before you ask, they didn't do anything to make his eyes do that in this film. That is how he actually looks.
Yeah.
He's got that lazy eye.
Yeah.
Naturally. And boy, am I glad he's willing to make jokes about it.
Mm-hmm.
Madeline Kahn played Elizabeth, and she was a gypsy moth in A Bug's Life.
Yes.
Cloris Leachman played Frau Blucher. She was Gran in The Croods, and in an upcoming movie we'll be reviewing, Ponyo,
Yes.
she plays Ko.
Okay.
Terry Garr was the voice of Inga. And in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, she played Ronnie Neary.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Kenneth Mars plays Inspector Kemp.
Gosh.
And he played King Triton in The Little Mermaid.
Yes.
Last but not least, Gene Hackman was the blind man.
Oh my gosh, I love that performance.
And he was, of course, Lex Luthor in the 1978 Superman film.
Yes.
Kingdom Hearts connections. Guess how many we have?
Oh gosh. Not many, because this is 1970s. Maybe 3 or 4.
Lower.
1.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you guess who it is?
Oh gosh. Is it a main actor?
It's someone I listed.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
I'll give you this hint. When you were over here watching me play Kingdom Hearts on the streams, what was that, 2-3 years ago?
Yeah.
You heard him.
I heard him. Okay.
You heard his performance.
Wouldn't have been Gene Wilder.
No.
Crap. I'm clueless. What is it?
I just mentioned what movie he was in that he plays the same role in the game.
Oh, really?
Yes. I'm sitting there going, how have you not caught this yet?
I don't know. I don't remember his name. Sorry.
King Triton?
Oh.
Kenneth Mars?
Kenneth Mars. Oh my gosh. Okay, where's that mallet? I knocked myself out.
Here, let me help you with that.
Man down.
Somebody on the Twitch side clip that.
I'm done. Bye.
All right. That's what I've got for the cast list. What do we have in info and stuff?
Oh, my head. All right. So, info and stuff. IMDb has an 8.8 out of 10. Available to watch on HBO Max. Production was Gustav Venture Films, Crossbow Productions Inc., Drutter Limited, distributed by 20th Century Fox, now 20th Century Studios. Release date December 15th, 1974. Box office had estimated budget of $2.8 million, which is a lot of money back then for a film. Let's see. U.S. gross, U.S. and Canada gross was $83.7 million, and the same worldwide. Home release. Young Frankenstein became available on DVD for the first time on November 3rd, 1998. The film was then released on Blu-ray for a second time on September. I was looking at the numbers as a way that makes no sense. For a second time on September 5th, 2006, the film was released again for a third time on DVD on September 9th on 2014 as a 40th anniversary, along with a Blu-ray release. Sequels. There is no sequel, but there is a play. There is a musical.
There's a musical, yes.
Brooks adapted the film into a musical of the same name, which premiered in Seattle at the Paramount Theaters and ran from August 7th to September 1st, 2007. The musical opened on Broadway at the Lyric Theater, now the Hilton Theater, on November 8th of 2007 and closed on January 4th, 2009. It was nominated for 3 Tony Awards. The musical was to be used as a base. Hold on, let me reread that. The musical version was to be used as the base for a live broadcast event on the ABC network in the last quarter of 2020, with Brooks producing. However, the production was canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Thanks, COVID.
Actually, I'm not sad about that.
Really?
I have opinions about some of the live action comedy, movie comedies that have been turned into musicals.
Yeah.
Just opinions.
Okay, fair.
You did not mention that it was released originally on Laserdisc on December 4th, 1996.
I didn't see that.
It's fair. I knew it was on Laserdisc because I've listened to the commentary on this, and they took the commentary from the Laserdisc.
Okay.
And you can tell because Mel Brooks is trying to explain what the commentary is. He says, and this is if you've turned the thing over to the B side. It's like, what is this, like a record? Well, if it was Laserdisc, yes. It was.
Okay then.
But anyway,
that's all I have for an info.
Okay, let's go ahead and jump into the summary. Dr. Frederick Frankenstein is a lecturing physician at an American medical school and engaged to Elizabeth, a socialite. He becomes exasperated when anyone brings up the subject of his grandfather, Victor Frankenstein, the infamous mad scientist with whom he does not want to be associated, and insists that his surname is indeed pronounced Frankenstein. When a solicitor informs him that he has inherited his family's estate in Transylvania after the death of his great-grandfather, the Baron Beaufort von Frankenstein, Frederick travels to Europe to inspect the property. At the Transylvania train station, he is met by a hunchback, bug-eyed servant named Igor, whose own grandfather worked for Victor, and a beautiful young female assistant named Inga. Hearing that the professor pronounces his name Frankenstein, Igor insists that his name is pronounced Igor rather than the traditional Igor. Arriving at the estate, Frederick meets Frau Blucher, the intimidating housekeeper. After discovering the secret entrance to Victor's laboratory and reading his private journals, Frederick decides to resume his grandfather's experiments in reanimating the dead. He and Igor steal the corpse of a recently executed criminal, and Frederick sets to work experimenting on the large corpse. He sends Igor to steal the brain of a deceased scientist and saint, Hans Delbruck. Startled by his own reflection, Igor drops and ruins Delbruck's brain. Taking a second brain labeled abnormal, Igor returns with it, and Frederick transplants it into the corpse, thinking he has transplanted Delbruck's brain. Frederick brings the creature to life with electrical charges during a lightning storm. The creature takes its first steps, but frightened by Igor lighting a match, he attacks Frederick and nearly strangles him before he is sedated. Meanwhile, unaware of the creature's existence, the townspeople gather to discuss their unease at Frederick continuing his grandfather's work. Inspector Kemp, a one-eyed police official with a prosthetic arm whose German accent is so thick that even his own countrymen cannot understand him, proposes to visit the doctor, whereupon he demands assurance that Frankenstein will not create another monster. Returning to the lab, Frederick discovers that Blucher setting the creature free. She reveals the monster's love of violin music and her own romantic relationship with Frederick's grandfather. The creature is enraged by sparks from a thrown switch and escapes the castle. While roaming the countryside, the monster first encounters with a young girl and a blind hermit, referencing 1931's Frankenstein and 1935's Bride of Frankenstein, respectively. Frederick recaptures the monster and locks himself in a room with him. He calms the monster's homicidal tendencies with flattery and promises to guide him to success, embracing his heritage as a Frankenstein. At a theater full of illustrious guests, Frederick shows the creature following simple commands. The demonstration continues with Frederick and the monster both in top hats and tuxedos performing the musical number Putting on the Ritz. A stage light suddenly explodes and frightens the monster, interrupting the performance. The crowd begins to boo and throw vegetables at the monster, who becomes enraged and charges into the crowd, where he is captured and chained by police. Back in the laboratory, Inga attempts to comfort Frederick, and they have a good time on the suspended reanimation table. One of these days, I'll actually remember to read the entire thing before I copy paste it
Yes.
into my notes.
That might be a good idea.
The monster escapes from prison the same night that Frederick's fiancée, Elizabeth, arrives unexpectedly for a visit. The monster takes her captive as he flees. Elizabeth falls in love with the creature due to his enormous Schwanzstücker, while the townspeople hunt for the monster. Frederick plays the violin to lure the creature back to the castle and recapture him. Just as the Kemp-led mob storms the laboratory, Frankenstein transfers some of his stabilizing intellect to the creature, who reasons with and placates the mob. Elizabeth, with her hair styled after that of the female creature from Bride of Frankenstein, marries the now erudite and sophisticated monster, while Inga, in bed with Frederick, asks what her new husband got in return during the transfer procedure. Frederick growls wordlessly like the monster and embraces Inga, who, as Elizabeth did when abducted by the monster, begins singing the refrain, "Oh, sweet mystery of life, at last I found you." I'm sorry, the minute you started laughing, I had to keep it going up and up and up and up.
Oh man, I love that scene. It's so funny.
Getting into the trivia for this. When Mel Brooks was preparing for this film, he discovered that Ken Strackfaden, who made the elaborate electrical machinery for the lab sequences in the Universal Frankenstein films, was still alive and living in the Los Angeles area. Brooks visited Strickfaden and found that he had stored all the equipment in his garage. Brooks made a deal to rent the equipment and gave Strickfaden the screen credit he never received for the original films.
Really?
Mm-hmm. The shifting hump on Igor's back was an ad-libbed gag.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Marty Feldman had been surreptitiously shifting the hump back and forth for several days when cast members finally noticed, and then they added it to the script.
Perfect. Just perfect.
Cloris Leachman improvised the dialogue in which Frau Blucher... Oh, now you can't load the audio! Fine, the joke's dead anyway. Offers Vollmilch and Ovaltine to Dr. Frankenstein. When Gene Wilder leans in to kiss Madeline Kahn goodnight in her bedroom, the last second quip, "no tongues," was ad-libbed by Kahn.
I love that line.
Gene Hackman ad-libbed the blind man's parting line, "I was going to make espresso." The scene immediately fades to black because the crew erupted into fits of laughter.
I wonder why.
Hackman was unable to repeat the line without laughing with the rest of the crew, so the first take was used. Hackman was uncredited when the movie was originally released to theaters.
Really?
Yeah. Gene Hackman learned about the film through his frequent tennis partner, Gene Wilder, and requested a role because he wanted to try comedy. He volunteered to play the blind hermit for free. It was 4 days of shooting for about 4 minutes of running time. Gene Wilder conceived the putting on the Ritz, while Mel Brooks was resistant to it as a mere conceit and felt it would detract from the fidelity of Universal horror films and the rest of the film. Wilder recalls being close to rage and tears and argued for the scene before Brooks stopped him and said, "It's in." When Wilder asked why he had changed his mind, Brooks said that since Wilder had fought for it, then it would be the right thing to do. But it was only when he soon saw the musical number along with a howling audience that Brooks was finally confident about the sequence. Last but not least, the musical cue where Igor calls the castle home would become famous years later once the internet became a thing, because it became used in the internet meme Dramatic Chipmunk Prairie Dog. You know, where the chipmunk turns around and you hear bum bum bum.
Yes.
That's where this movie is where that audio came from.
Really?
And that's what I've got for trivia for this film. Because I'm actually curious, what is your first like for this film?
My first like, I'm gonna rearrange a little bit the more the aesthetics, because it was more that Mel Brooks be like he took the dare to, it's like, oh, we're gonna shoot this in black and white. You know, this is 1970s. And I think in one of the commentaries, it was like, hey, this certain country just got color. What the world are you thinking? And
well, they'd been using color for a number of years
Yeah.
by that point.
Mhm.
So no one in the film processing department remembered how to process black and white film,
right.
which I find hilarious.
Yes. But I love the aesthetic. I mean, like it's it is very much an homage, a call not a call out, but more of a I don't even say it a parody. It's not even a parody of it. It's just it's a
It's a reference to the original
yeah,
Universal horror films.
it's even more than that. It's more of like it's a grand homage. It's a love letter to
Mhm.
the 1930s and 40s Universal monster films, and just how like the aesthetic, how things are lit. Because like even like in the 70s they had they had much grander technology to do things, but they use a lot of what they used to use back in the 30s and 40s to shoot these things, like
Mhm.
like adjusting the light and the whole bit. And well, they do that in more modern films, but they took Brooks took such great lengths to make this film so authentic to the time period it's supposed to be portraying, down to be like I'd be like I loved watching this film. Like granted, the beginning of this film, it has this very be like it's very serious, and there's no bits of comedy except for just like one or two bits. I'm thinking like, is this a Mel Brooks film? Because I'm watching it, it's like, what in the world am I watching? And then by the time he gets to Transylvania, here comes the comedy the entire time.
There were jokes in that
Oh,
section.
I know, but it was just more.
It was all set up to get you.
It was all set
to
up
get over there.
But yeah, the pure classic aesthetics of making a classic film in black and white, taking that risk, and finding people. It's like, oh yeah, we'll take that, and to be like shooting and lighting, and
Mhm.
using original props from Frankenstein. And be like, it is just just like beautifully shot, beautifully created, recreations of a lot of things from that time period in those classic movie monsters that I just find very appealing and very appeasing.
Mhm.
So yeah, the classic aesthetic, I love that about this film.
So when you're when you watch parodies, there's
Mhm.
they usually do it in two ways. One where they will give you the idea
Mhm.
of the past
Mhm.
of the movie that they're referencing,
Yeah.
and then there's those that go full bore. And this is one of those that went full bore, because
Yes.
this really does feel like, even with the comedic bits in there, that it could be one of those classic Universal monster films.
Yes.
It fits right in there. Yes,
It
it's
does.
making fun of them. It's
Yes.
but it's a loving parody
Yes.
of
agreed.
these. It's not necessarily mocking them,
No.
except it is mocking them. It's, I don't know, it's a weird way to put that.
It's very lightly, lovingly mocking the original.
Yeah, it's mocking what happened in there, but it's still telling the Frankenstein story like fairly straight. I mean, yes, there are differences, there are changes. It's an adaptation,
Mhm.
but it still feels like it could have been a Frankenstein story.
Yes.
You've got with the original lab equipment in there,
Mhm.
working with the aesthetic, like you said, the aesthetics of the Transylvania castle and all that. It's not till you get to weird things like the theater scene with putting
Mhm.
on the Ritz that you're going,
Oh, that yeah.
what is that? Because it admittedly,
Mhm.
as hilarious and funny as that is,
Uh-huh.
it comes right the flip out of nowhere.
Yes. Agreed.
And so and that scene is just absolutely ridiculous. But this film does really feel like, even if it's making a parody of it, but it's doing it in the right way.
Yes.
It's the closest movie I can think that does this with the Universal horror films. Ironically, I think is also a Universal horror film,
Yes.
but it's Abbott and Costello meet Dracula.
Yeah.
Or it might be It might actually be meets Frankenstein, because it includes Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Wolfman.
Yeah.
And they're all played by their original Universal actors.
Mhm.
But this is the closest I could think of it. Neko in our chat is asking if this is a Frankenstein movie if Monty Python made it. No, because Monty Python and the Holy Grail is literally just, you would never accept that as the actual, as part of the actual Arthurian legend.
Yes.
This feels like it could be a Frankenstein story.
Could. Yeah, I agree.
Like it's actually like it could be in the canon. It's not, because it's different, but it feels like it could.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple instances where it's like, okay, why did Elizabeth's hair turn white? Obviously, it's because they're now referencing Bride of Frankenstein,
Mm-hmm.
but how did it turn white in strips on the way there?
Very true.
There's little things like that even the Universal monster movies wouldn't have played with, that had given
Mhm.
some logical reason. And there are a couple, you can tell that. So I don't know if you looked at the deleted scenes.
No, I did not.
There's roughly a third of the film on those deleted scenes that was cut out.
Really?
Yeah. And you can kind of tell when you know when you know that, and when you've seen those deleted scenes, where they might have been, because that seems to be where all the logic jumps seem to hit. But the way they edit around that, you don't notice it if you don't know to look for them.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, you just go, okay, yeah, we're just making fun of Frankenstein films. So yeah, there's going to be these kind of little bitty jokes here and there. But this, like I said, what I like about this film is that it feels like it's a Frankenstein film. It's making fun of them, yes, but it feels like a Frankenstein film.
Agreed.
And honestly, the closest movie I can think of that does this the same is Galaxy Quest.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, knowing your thoughts on Galaxy Quest,
yes,
I was actually afraid you weren't going to like this film, because in my mind, it's the same type of film and the same style. And I was afraid this was going to hit that same issue with you. That's all I'm going to say.
Fair.
So yeah, that's my first like. What's your second like?
My second like would be an actor and his character alone. Marty Feldman.
Marty Feldman.
Marty Feldman is Igor. Oh my gosh. the first time he pops in the screen, and he runs and he introduces himself to Dr. Frankenstein, Gene Wilder, and it's just like immediately just pop me, like he's got, like, character has your attention in every scene he's in. He is grabbing that scene and owning it every single time, even over Gene Wilder in some cases.
Oh yeah,
because Gene Wilder, an amazing comedic actor in his own right, but Marty Friedman as Marty Feldman. Just like every scene, be like he popped, like the scene that comes to mind is where he is be like they are being drawn into the secret door where the laboratory is, and be like, oh, the head that's been here for 5 years, 2 years, 3 years, and
it's 5 years dead, 3 years dead, 1 year dead, 4 months dead, freshly dead. Hey, ain't got nobody, and nobody cares for me.
I love it.
Igor Frodrick.
Just genius. Be like, there again, I had never heard of this actor before. Before this film.
This was the main thing I knew him from.
Exactly.
I have only caught. I've seen him in that silent film, because that was one I was curious of. But if you have Disney Plus, go to the Muppet Show. The final episode is the one he's the guest star on, and it is hilarious.
Oh, okay.
It's also the one they had to edit the most out of, because like they had to edit the entire last song out because it was all Sesame Street, and they don't own the rights to Sesame Street.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, Marty Feldman just like stole, grabbed every kind of adjective word of action, like just describes his character, his like the way, like when Frankenstein's fiance showed up. Oh my gosh, I was laughing my sticky head off. Every single scene he's in, like he is giving 100% of a amazing British comedic actor, and it's like, oh my gosh, where is this bit? Like, I've never heard of the actor. Be like, I'd seen pictures from this film. I didn't know who this guy was. I was like, man, this looks a little weird. But it's like watching the film and understanding like who the actor is like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So yeah, Igor is my second. Like, I loved this actor. I loved his performance. I thought he stole every single scene he was in, including topping Gene Wilder of all people.
Well, the thing is, Gene Wilder in this has to play the straight man to everything.
Yes.
The man who is Willy Wonka has to be a straight man.
Yeah.
To every joke in this film.
Oh yeah.
Yes, he gets some great some great jokes, but you're going up against Marty Feldman for one thing as Igor and so many of the others. And that's the thing I actually leads right into my second like for this film.
Okay.
The cast.
Oh yeah.
Every single person in here is on point. Gene Wilder plays the doctor so well. One of my favorite jokes from him is when it's in the very beginning, the part you said that didn't have as many jokes. And he's explaining to the student why he's doesn't care about his grandfather's work.
Yeah.
He even goes, my grandfather's work was doo-doo.
I agree. Be like, there's some comedy there, but it's more laid back. It's not as like over and bombastic.
Well,
as of most
as he's finishing that up, he's holding a scalpel
in
his hand, and he says, you have just as much chance of bringing the scalpel to life as you do dead tissue. I'm trying to remember exactly. I'm not interested in the causes of death. I'm interested in the preservation of life. He stabs his leg with the scalpel, opens the hand, sees the scalpel, grabs a hold of it, crosses his legs, and says, class dismissed.
Yes.
And then the whole bit there before where he's explaining reflexes to the class.
Oh yeah.
That poor man.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh my.
But that's just to start on this. He's got the rest of the film. The rest of the film does this so well. You got, of course, like you said, Marty Feldman as Igor, the only person in the entire film to break the fourth wall.
Yes.
And he does it constantly. And one of my favorite jokes in that is when they're doing the charades when the monster strangle him. So he's trying to.
That was
tell
good.
them to give him the sedative, and they get Gene Wilder gets to the tiv part and he's showing give and I goes give him a sedative. And Inga finally runs his tiv. They stop, and Gene Wilder just looks at him and goes, "Sedative."
Oh yeah, you're not kidding. You are not kidding.
And there's so many other good parts of them. One last little one at the end where they're playing the song over the loudspeaker.
Yeah,
and you can see and Gene, the doctor, is playing the violin part and doing most of it. And Igor is sitting there with a French horn, counting the rests, and you're going, oh no, what's he gonna do? Finally, he stands up just right when he gets to it and goes, "Bo-do-do, bo-do-do," sits back down, starts counting time again. It's like, I don't think you have to be that particular, but that is funny to the point where the first time I saw this, I heard that part, and it took a couple tries for me to finally catch that. When you listen to the whole song at the beginning of the film, you can actually hear a French horn at that part do the do 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 do.
Oh my gosh!
Which I'll talk more about that song later. But the acting, one thing I like is Peter Boyle as the monster.
Oh yeah.
He plays both the dumb monster and the smart monster perfectly.
Yes,
to the point where you can tell he just doesn't know how to talk for the most part.
Yeah.
I think that Peter Boyle is is the only other person to ever break the fourth wall, and it's that look when Gene Hackman smashes his goblet with the brandy, and he just goes, rolls his eyes towards the heavens. And Oh, that whole bit is hilarious. Of course,
Oh
Gene
my
Hackman's
gosh.
comedy in that is great because
It's
he has to
great.
carry the dialogue through that entire scene.
Yes.
And then, of course, Inga, um, Madeline Kahn as Blucher, and Madeline Kahn plays Frau Blucher. It's Cloris Leachman that plays Frau Blucher.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just said that all backwards.
Maybe.
Inga playing Elizabeth. No, Inga playing Elizabeth. That makes a lot of sense. No, Terry Garr playing Inga. Elizabeth being played by Madeline Kahn,
Mm-hmm.
and Cloris Leachman playing Frau Blucher. All do their stuff excellently. But then we have to talk about Kenny Mars. This character, Inspector Kemp, is in one of my favorite characters in this entire film. Guys, he's got a wooden leg, a wooden arm, a eye patch over one of his eyes, and wearing on top of that eye patch, he has a monocle.
Great. So freaking great.
He has an accent. His accent is so thick, no one can understand him half the time. And he's got some of the greatest lines in this whole thing. I don't know when we're gonna give you. Okay, y'all know I'm on an audio drama called Gospel by Gaslight.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert: my character, Dr. Verboten, I based his voice off of Kenny Mars in this film.
That's genius.
Because it just fits. So I've got it dialed back a little because his thickness is a little too thick for what we're doing. But it started there. So like literally when I'm trying to get into the voice, I have to go, we must confirm the fact that he is indeed following in his grandfather's footsteps. What? Following in his grandfather's footsteps. Oh!
Stop.
And that's how I have to get into that voice when I get ready to record that. And because he's so funny. The scene where they're playing darts.
Yes.
I don't know how this missed my trivia for one thing.
Yeah.
But the time that he throws it and you hear the cat go, wow!
Oh, yeah.
The cat is Mel Brooks. That is the only. Mel Brooks is always in one of his films. This is the only part he is in this film.
He's the cat.
And he's the cat. And it's just like, we needed a joke. I did it on. I thought of it while we were doing that, and he recorded it. But the funny part of that is, the doctor's turned around. The inspector goes over and gets all the darts off the board, walks back, quietly turns around, pops all of the darts into the dartboard at one spot, comes back. I don't know what he's doing to fire them with his prosthetic wooden arm. This goes, and the doctor turns around just in time, assumably to not see the last dart fly through the air. And he goes, "Nice grouping." And then when he leaves and he's going out to the car, and there's far more darts in that car that Gene threw. Far more darts in that car than Gene threw.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, wow, this must not have been a good game at all.
To quote our chat, be like, he must have used the force.
Maybe, but it was funny. Kenneth Mars is the character of Inspector Kemp is one of my favorite characters in this whole thing. So yeah, the cast is my second.
Oh my gosh.
What's your third?
So going into my second, I like the moral quandary of this scene because it makes more of the how we perceive things. And you have the monster obviously played by Peter Boyle. And the scene is done so incredibly well where the monster gets up and he talks for the first time.
Yeah.
And he makes this amazing monologue. I actually copied it down. For as long as I can remember, people have hated me. They look at my face and my body and they run away in horror. In my loneliness, I decided that if I could not inspire love, which is my deepest hope, I would instead cause fear. I live because of this poor, half crazed genius has given me life. He alone has held the image of me as something beautiful. And then, when it would have been easy enough to stay away from danger, he used his own body as a guinea pig to give me a clear a calmer mind and something more. I'm gonna butcher this word.
Sophisticated.
Sophisticated. Thank you. Yeah, I love reading disorders. Where are you? Sophisticated way of expressing myself. I thought that was the most genius way to express the idea of what we fear we do not understand. And there's a little bit of the understanding of what the fear is in this movie. I'll get that in my dislikes, but a little later. But this brilliant kind of, because everyone in the theater scene where it's like we're going to show the monster can do this and monster can do this, and people are like, it's like, oh, he can act like us, but then once he goes like full monster, he's afraid, but like everybody's afraid of him. But once he's given the ability to speak, people like immediately want, because he's talking like a proper gentleman. He's acting like, a noble man. And so now everyone's like, oh, he's just one of us. Let's go and have a brandy or something with each other. So it's this idea that if we look beyond like the surface of what someone is, and appreciate the humanity, what the image of God in which we are all based on. And looking at who the person is rather than what we perceive someone is. And sometimes I struggle with that sometimes. I think we all struggle with that. And I think if we look at someone who they are as a human, rather than be like, we could point and be like, oh, this is an evil person, or be like, this person doesn't deserve anything. But that's what Christ gave us in dying for us, to give us life and to give us a hope in life. And so why would we cast people down? Why would we, it's like this is a monster. It's like, why don't we show the love of Christ to people rather than just condemning them, and just show them grace and show them love and be like, and show them who Christ is, and the Holy Spirit leads after that. So that when I saw that scene play out, that little seed plant got watered a little bit in my mind. I was like, you know what, that's a good point. So yeah, it's the whole idea of how we treat one another. And because it's like, oh, he acts like us, oh, there's nothing wrong. But when it's something we are foreign or something different to us, we act and belligerent to it. And I found that scene very, very moving in very odd ways, and not we need to embrace everybody, embrace what they are, that are sins or whatever, but rather it's just more like, that's a person just like you and me, and they should be treated like a human being. And yeah, I thought it was a very moving, touching scene, even though I don't know if that was what Brooks was trying to go for in this film, but that's what I drew away from it. So that's my third like.
My third like for this film, its theme song, Transylvanian Lullaby by John Morris, who was also the composer for the rest of the film, of course. This song is not the kind of song you would think would be in the front of a comedy, if we're being honest. Okay. And it's not just the opening. It is a major song that plays throughout the entire film, diegetically, which if you don't know what I mean by diegetically, that means it's the characters in the film are hearing it too. It's not just being played for the audience. So we start off with this, the movie starts off with, after the fanfare for the title, it just goes into this slow kind of sad little song.
Mhm.
Dee, 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 dee,
Mm.
dee, 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 dee. And it's, if you played that in like to someone and told them this is from a movie, but I'm not telling you what, they would never think it was a comedy.
No.
It sounds like it's a song that would play before a tragedy,
Mm.
which of course comedies are just tragedy plus time.
Mm-hmm.
But in general is what they say.
Yeah.
But the song is so beautiful, and it's one of the songs I went out of my way to find and put on my phone
Mm.
because I find the song that very, very beautiful.
Mm.
It's kind of it's got a dark gothic feel, you know,
Mhm.
and it just sounds like it's sad, and yet you could fall asleep to it because it's a lullaby.
Oh, okay.
But how it plays throughout the movie, with it being the song that was designed to calm the monster, and how it somehow spoke to not just the monster but to the doctor as well,
Oh, okay.
and how apparently it's like in their soul
Hmm.
to the point where it pulls them. The fact that it makes the monster calm down enough and give him enough calmness that it's like well, in that first scene where he see him reacting to it, it looks like he's trying to capture butterflies.
Yeah. He's just
Like
grabbing
it's
stuff. Yeah.
that kind of a piece, and it's like wow, and it pulls him from well, and at the very end, it pulls him from Elizabeth,
Mm-hmm.
you know, out in the middle of the woods, but
Yeah.
it pulls him away from her
Yeah.
and draws him all the way back to the castle.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a song that fits you that beautifully. And it's like, and no one cares that the doctor appears to be playing it because
Yeah.
they never even if they knew that song was the doctor calling to the monster, they didn't immediately turn around and run back to the castle.
Right.
It's just a beautiful, kind of creepy,
Yeah.
but beautiful song that is just, I love the song. I can't tell you much more than that. It's just a beautiful song, and I have known to whistle it sometimes when I'm just walking around.
Okay.
So, yeah, Transylvanian Lullaby is my third like for this film.
Gotcha.
And now we get to the hard part. Dislikes.
Fair.
What's your first one?
My first is like, now granted, this is a nitpick where they use either they slow down the footage or it just becomes a still frame.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just more like a character does this and they just freeze. But I understand maybe it's just limitations, maybe they ran out of film or something like that, or it's an aesthetic thing. But I saw there's two examples of that in the film where it's either, I think in one scene it's Igor where he's talking and then the film kind of slows down because
it does a freeze frame and then they flash like the backlight behind it to make it look like lightning is going off.
Yeah,
to make it less obvious that they did a freeze frame, and that may have worked like on a theater screen, but on our HD televisions, we know exactly what it is.
Exactly. So yeah, it's just little nitpicks because there again, it's a film from 1974.
Yeah,
and watching it from watching it on a 21st century television, it's a little aggravating because you see because there again sometimes like that is more of the aesthetic of the time, but sometimes it just like it's not bad in this film, but I've seen worse in some films that were far worse, but it got a little annoying whenever you saw it. So yeah, just the little snippets of freeze frame.
I'm gonna jump on that probably for my first dislike here, and I know why in a lot of cases they had to do it, and that's because they were cracking each other up on set.
Yeah,
and so in a lot of cases, either they didn't like, for instance, with the Igor one, I guarantee you they zoomed in and did not hold on him long enough.
Yeah.
They did not realize this till they were in the editing room.
Yeah.
So they had to do a freeze frame and do something to make it work because because your only other option is to go back and do reshoots, and I bet you they didn't have time when they come to that point.
Probably not.
So that's my guess on that one. But there's a couple other times where the cut is fast. Like
Mhm.
it feels like we're in the middle of a scene and we fade out and go to another scene. It's not often, and it's not like
Mhm.
jarring,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of instances where it feels like I think the scene was supposed to go on a little longer.
Yeah.
One I know for certain is the scene where the doctor's getting strangled by the monster,
Mhm.
and then for a short second it goes in on a close up on Inga kind of inhaling, and then goes
Yeah.
back to the same shot.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does that because the scene was originally longer,
Mm.
but they could not find a good place to match between where they wanted to cut and where they wanted to cut to.
Yeah.
So they had to put something in there to make it gel a little better. And they happened to have this other close-up shot
Mhm.
that they had on her that they didn't use where they were originally going to use it.
Yeah.
And they just stuck it in there.
Yeah.
It was for the same scene, but it was like before that, kind of like
I
a
gotcha.
shock to see the monster was up,
Mhm.
and they didn't know it. I think that's how that was supposed to go.
Okay.
But there are little things like that throughout the whole film,
Uh-huh.
and times when it seems like we're on a scene for like 3 seconds too short
Yeah.
is the best way I know how to put that.
Yeah.
The one I read the trivia for is actually one I did not realize
Hmm.
that they did that for at the end of the blind man scene. I just assumed that was just the end of the scene. I didn't realize they actually had to cut that before people started cracking up on set, and because that would have been caught on film.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I will grant you that there's a bunch of instances in here where they had to cut
Yeah.
probably far closer to where they needed to than where they would have liked to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the weird cuts.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of weird cuts, my second dislike of this film, I titled Fear. What fear? So we have this entire where apparently everyone's afraid of the monster. Everyone's afraid of the monster, but they never see the monster through the entire film. None of the villagers,
They don't see, none of them see the monster till the very end of the film.
yeah, very end of the film. And like when he's revealed to in the auditorium,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, and that's the other time when
yeah,
they see
because
him.
it'd be like they have this general fear. It'd be like even the monsters would be like, "I am so feared," and blah blah blah. Because I keep thinking, it's like, is there a scene been deleted where be like the monster interacts with people beforehand? Because so there's be like, I like you said, there's like a ton of deleted scenes in this film.
Yeah.
And I have not seen the deleted scenes yet.
So I will tell you that none of those deleted scenes, at least from what I remember, give a scene where they would showing him being afraid of this particular monster.
Yeah.
You got to remember that within the setting of this world,
Yeah.
Victor Frankenstein's experiments,
was
his grandfather,
Yeah.
were so famous and infamous,
Mhm.
or infamous,
Infamous.
as that guy says,
Mhm.
that even the kids at the university that Frederick was teaching at knew about the story.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that makes
obviously
sense.
everyone knows about the
Yeah.
Dr. Frankenstein and his monster. And now, keep in mind, from the villagers' point of view, with no information
Yeah,
whatsoever,
that's true.
they know that another Frankenstein,
Mhm.
despite the fact he doesn't like to go by that last name and
Right.
has to change it around, is living in the castle.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much
Yeah,
for
paranoia and- yeah.
for the paranoia to go, oh, he's got to be, building another monster and it's going to attack us and kill us.
Yeah.
Are they right? Yes. Well, he doesn't kill anybody.
No.
But are they right that there's going to be a monster that's going to tear loose around this
Yeah.
town? Yeah, it happens twice.
Yeah.
So, dude,
It's understandable. It's understandable in some capacities, but going back to the monsters, monologue
mhm.
at the very end of the film where it's just like, oh, I am feared, I am this, I am this.
But they were making a judgment call based on nothing they knew about the monster himself,
true.
just on the stories that they were told by their grandparents.
Yes. And
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're making good points of it. So I think if they would have made more of a like there again be like legend and lore,
Mhm.
definitely we're talking like very superstitious country towns,
Yeah.
definitely the medieval type, are going to believe superstition and of stories that are so outrageous in the whole bit that like, the paranoia and the fear is going to be there even though they have no evidence of it. But I think if they would have made it where like the villagers had seen this variation of the monster, this version of the monster, and they would have more grounds to be more fearful. So I think if there, I keep thinking there must have been a scene where
There wasn't.
There is no scene.
There is no scene where the monster meets up with the villagers prior to. Well, I say that. There is one deleted scene. It was Mel Brooks' only other try for a cameo that he ended up cutting because the scene just didn't work.
Okay.
Where he was playing like a traveling salesman.
Yeah.
And I don't remember exactly how it goes down, but the monster ends up scaring him off from town.
That would have been funny.
That would have been funny, but it does. I will tell you, I've watched the scene. It doesn't work. It's not funny at all. It's and part 90% of it is because Mel Brooks is talking to the camera the entire time. So that's part of the issue.
Yeah.
I think what would fix your problem with it still being fear the way the fear of just the idea of a Frankenstein living in that castle.
Yeah, exactly.
Where they could still use that is had when Frederick first got to town and he is following Igor out to the carriage, the hay carriage. If there had been like one or two other people like on the platform, like they're picking up and they run away when they see Frederick because they realize, oh, that must be the mad doctor. Or here's another idea.
Yeah.
Bring in Inspector Kemp early. Have him be there and give a warning about don't continue your grandfather's work or whatever.
Yeah.
Or that would have worked because it's going to spook the people of the town and they're going to be spooked anyway. That would give you enough ideas like, okay, the town is spooked at the guy.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing is the Frederick does not deal with any of the townspeople either.
True.
Throughout the whole film.
True.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I just like good points, very good points and all. I still believe like it'd be like it could have been a comedy bit or whatever, kind of like the Mel Brooks. He's not a voice actor.
Well, he is, but
I found it if they would have like maybe where Dr. Frankenstein comes into town, maybe he would have ran into maybe a villager and he introduced himself and people would have afraid that, or maybe like they would have saw like the monster in a shadow or something like that to give that elevation of fear. Because there again, be like, superstition that leads into fear, that leads into panic, and be like, it's very classic monster trope. But I think if they would have like subverted a little bit to where it's like whenever they say the monster, it's something silly or something like that, but there was still this heightened fear that the monster isn't scary at all or something like that. But I think if they would have be like given more rise to be like, oh, people fear me in that line that the monster says, would have given more credence.
Okay.
So yeah, that's all I'm saying. It's like fear. What fear?
I think they had fear. And I think they had no reason to have fear.
I agree.
But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways.
The fear didn't fit for you. I get that.
Maybe.
The fear was not believable for you, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Like
because I think they showed good reasons why they would be afraid.
They did. I think it's
just baseless fear.
Yeah, it's just baseless fear. Yeah. So anyway, that was my second dislike. Anyways, what is your second dislike?
My second dislike is this is hard for me to come up with a lot of this because part of the issue here is, and I think you'll understand where I'm coming from for this. I've seen this film a number of times.
Okay.
So a lot of things just don't bug me like they might be bugging you.
Okay.
But the other thing is like almost every issue I could maybe bring up with this is very easy to go, but that's part of the joke. That's part of the parody. That's part of the aesthetic of it. Yeah, granted, you have those things with the really weird cuts earlier, and that would have been a legitimate problem even in the 30s with the original monster films. But it's hard to come up with other little things. There was one little nitpick I do have, and so the candles throughout this film, most of them are not real candles. They're like there are wax cylinders with a little gas pipe coming up that's putting out just enough of a flame, but it's something where in a hurry they can shut the whole thing off. And if there's an emergency like on the set or a fire catches up, they can shut everything off. And that's fine. So even when Frau Blucher turns around holding that obviously unlit candelabra, turns around and says, "Stay close to the candles. The stairs can be treacherous." Even when she does that and the candles off, that doesn't bug me. The part that bugged me, when they are up there with the bookshelf and they figure out how to use the candle correctly. If you watch that flame, when they go to push down on it, the flame goes off and lift back up, it's back on. And I don't mean just like, it moved so it flickered. No, I mean it's off and then back on. And that's the case throughout the rest of most of the candle flames throughout this film. And yes, this is very much a nitpick, but this is what pointed it out to me. None of the candle flames are tall enough for the type of candles and the type of use they're here for. The flames are not tall enough. They're not. They can't really give off the light that we would like for them to give off. Now, granted, they don't actually have to give off light during the filming because there's big, heavy stage lights shining down on all these sets and going to be blinding out a bunch of the flames. But I just wish that the flames were just a little bit bigger. To make it a little more obvious that they were actually lighting something up and not just blowing in the wind. What times they're there. So
agreed.
Flames on candles not being big enough is my second dislike.
Okay, fair enough. My third dislike, I don't have a third dislike.
Good, because I don't really either.
Okay, good.
I was pushing it. I'll admit, when I was going through that first part of it, I was vamping to figure out what is my second dislike. What is my second dislike? So yeah. So if neither one of us have a third, then we need to go into our final rating for this film.
I'll let you go first.
This is hard for me to rate because I have so much nostalgia for this film. I think I'm going to have to give it an 8.5.
Oh, okay.
It's good film. Do not get me wrong.
Yes, absolutely.
And I feel like this is not my gut reaction is not this low. I actually want to give it like 9.5.
Yeah.
But I have no idea how much of that is really the nostalgia and the memories for this film that I have, and how much of it is actual quality of the film. Because see, that's the thing. Yeah, I thought you may not like this because of how close it is to Galaxy Quest, but honestly, this is a film that I have no idea. I don't suggest it to people because I have no idea how anyone else will take it.
Agreed.
And because in my mind, it's not the film I originally saw. It's the film I've seen 20 times. Yeah. At least. Where I know all the jokes front and back, and I know everything else. So to me, I hate to say what I'm docking this film for the most is the fact that it doesn't hold up on the 20th rewatch. Okay. Because that's not fair to any film.
I agree.
But that's kind of what it is for me. It's like I've seen this film so many times that it's at the point, like I said, it's at the point where it starts to fall flat.
Okay.
So I definitely probably don't need to watch this again, especially by myself, maybe for another 20 years, unless I'm watching it with somebody who's never seen it before. Yeah. And I can enjoy it. I can watch it through their eyes. Yeah. Instead of just watching it through my own, where I'm going, Okay, gotta watch for that little thing. Gotta watch for that little thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's what it comes down to. Is my I am docking this film points. One whole point for me having watched it too many times. Something about that doesn't seem right, but
Yeah, agree.
honestly, it's because I don't know how much of that extra point that I
Yeah.
want to give it is because of how good it is or how much how nostalgic and pleasant memory it is for me.
Gotcha.
So yeah, what are you rating it?
I'm giving it a 9.
Okay.
I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. It has little like odd editing cuts
Mhm.
that just like, okay, that made that scene a little bit awkward, but it does have the, you know, odd sexual innuendo here and there, but you know that's what be like, you know, it's there. So like unless you want to cut around it, you know, don't do that because it's, you know, it's a freaking masterpiece of a film.
Yeah.
I would agree in that. uh I enjoyed it. There again, my first time watching it. My boss actually, when I told him, be like, hey, I watched Young Frankenstein for the first time. It's like, yeah, go back and, you know, just go back and rewatch it like 3 or 4 times.
Oh yeah.
Be like, you'll get more of those jokes this time. It's okay. So I will definitely do that. Would I recommend it? Yes, maybe not for younger audiences,
Mm-hmm.
but this is an amazing, wonderful film that I think most people would enjoy. Maybe it's maybe not their cup of tea of comedy, which for me, I think any Mel Brooks film I have seen so far, I've thoroughly enjoyed. There hasn't been a Mel Brooks films I haven't disliked so far. So there might be one out there. I don't know yet. Until I watch it, we'll see. But I will give this a solid 9. It is a wonderful film.
So fun fact, there is only one cuss word in this entire film.
Right.
Do you know where it is?
No, I don't.
It's at the very end, and Inspector Kemp is, you know, saying, "Let's everyone come." Okay, I don't know if I can jump back into his voice right now, but everyone come back to my house. We'll have sausages and tea and brandy. And someone and he moves while because the monster is still holding on to his prosthetic arm.
Oh yeah.
And it
yeah,
pulls
right.
off, and he goes, "Oh shit." That's the one cuss word in the whole film. So, like, if language is a problem, this is fine. But if your kids are if you don't want your kids to be exposed to certain things, maybe not.
Yes.
Anyway, next week we are finishing off Halloween month.
Yes, with a movie.
With a movie we meant to review 4 years ago.
But it didn't happen.
It didn't happen because both of us forgot we were doing it, because both of us like, oh yeah, because I even said it was actually on the Monsters Incorporated episode. I said next week we're reviewing Coraline, except that wasn't what the movie we were supposed to review next was. The movie we were supposed to review next was Book of Life.
Yes.
And I think neither one of us questioned it because it's like, oh yeah, Coraline, that's a great film.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, next week we are doing The Book of Life, which is basically you know how when films come out around the same time from two different studios and they unintentionally are the same thing?
Yeah.
That's kind of what this is, because this came out around the same time as Coco.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's kind of the same general idea.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we'll be reviewing that next week. And that will finish off Halloween month.
Nice.
So join us on the other side of the bumpers, and we'll be talking about what we've been watching, some news, and probably get into some X-Men.
This podcast is a proud member of Culture Box. Whether you enjoy geeky reviews, comedy, or original fiction, you can open up the Culture Box and find something excellent for your soul. Point your web browser to culturebox.media.
This week, we suggest checking out The Rushmore Show. The Rushmore Show is a place for ranking the ultimate top 4 in sports, video games, nostalgic movies, and so much more. Each week, Andy and Kirk spark engaging discussions and friendly debates, making The Rushmore Show your compass in the realm of pop culture rankings. You can find them at youtube.com/The Rushmore Show, where it's all about your top 4 and nothing more. The Cellcast would also like to thank our following patrons: Ashley and Francisco Ruiz, Book of Gaming, PaulJPowers.com, and Edwin Gonzalez. To get your name listed to get your name shouted out on the show, you can donate to us on Patreon, and you'll also get uncut episodes, and some special artwork from Jacob every once in a while.
Thanks.
So, Jacob, I have a question for you.
What have you been watching?
What have I been watching? More Rebels.
This I figured.
Yeah. So most of the week I have been busy working on projects, working on cover art for Monsters University, and trying to work.
Still waiting on that last final version of that.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there.
Yeah.
That's if you're wondering live why that episode's not released yet, that's why.
Yeah.
I'm waiting on that last bit of his album art.
Yeah. This one's taking me a little bit longer because it's more like trying to find the time to actually do it.
Right.
And so I should be able to get it done maybe tonight, probably early in the morning, but it should be headed your direction as soon as possible. But yeah, the only thing I've really like actually done was actually just work on art, work on this. And like tonight I actually had time to actually just watch Rebels, before I come over here. So yeah, right now I'm in season 2.
All right.
Yeah, so that is all I've been watching. What about you?
So this afternoon, when I was going through everything I needed to watch for the show, and I got done with Lower Decks, I didn't immediately exit from my thing because I watched Lower Decks on the Paramount Plus channel on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
I just was just scrolling through, and I happened to be going through the freebie section there on Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
and I noted that they had a movie that I didn't think was legal in the US or outside of China, because it is technically an unlicensed adaptation of Dragon Ball.
Really?
It is the Taiwanese unlicensed film Dragon Ball The Magic Begins. And it is literally an adaptation of Curse of the Blood Rubies.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And it was made in the 90s, and they changed all the characters' names so that legally they were not, I guess they were trying to, but it makes sense. You're trying to not be the film, but still be the film. They changed the name of the Dragon Balls, despite the fact the name of the movie is still called Dragon Ball. They're Dragon Pearls.
They're Dragon Pearls.
Yes. And it's not actually a bad film.
Okay.
I mean, 9/10 of it is like, if you've seen Curse of the Blood Rubies,
Yeah.
you've seen this film, except this is in live action, and it's a Chinese martial arts film, but with animation to handle any of the more cartoonish parts.
Right.
And I say it that way because there is, okay, first off, I want to say that when I started the film, yes, the title screen on Amazon said Dragon Ball The Magic Begins, but the title screen translated the title as Dragon Ball Ultimate Edition.
Ultimate Edition.
And I got the feeling while watching it, this is not the cut that came out in 1991 of this film. Somebody went in and edited in new CGI.
Okay.
And by new, I mean as cheap as you can make it. Like, this would not have made it in Toy Story.
Oh, wow.
The first movie. And it was a lot of it was made as slapdash and as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So the film starts off, the title sequence with all the character names and such, or the actors' credits and directors and all that, the opening credits. And it shows it's obviously supposed to be Shenron, of course, using his Chinese name, Shenlong, which is the actual name of the dragon Shenron is based off of. But he's got these big bugged out eyes, like humanoid eyes on the front of his head, not where the eyes are on the dragon, like here in front. Well, you remember Wish Dragon?
Yeah.
Where the eyes are on him.
Okay.
except the rest of his body is painfully obviously trying to mimic Akira Toriyama's Shenron.
Jeez.
And he's gold.
Gold.
And I don't mean he's got golden scales when there's like well designed. No, one shade of gold
Jeez.
across the whole thing, except for his eyes, which are white olives with a black core.
Wow.
I'm going, and the thing is, I watched this and going, I'm not because the thing was, this movie came out in 91.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it and going, I don't think CG was even have been around, been that good in 1991, where it might have shown up in China. And then there's these spaceships that show up from time to time that also look way too good for 1991 animation.
Yeah.
And they're obviously CG.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, think somebody must have remastered this, and that's why it says Ultimate Edition.
Maybe.
But they really shouldn't have. There's one scene between the fight between not Goku and not Yamcha.
Okay.
Which I don't remember what not Goku's name was in this, but not Yamcha was Westwood.
Okay. Westwood.
And they're doing this big fight scene in because you remember Curse of the Blood Rubies in the ruins there.
Yeah.
Where right after they meet Oolong, which in this is Pigsy. Which admittedly that makes sense considering the character he's based off of in Journey to the West. A lot of times his name translates into English as Pigsy. So I must not have thought the fight went on long enough because at one point they do this punch where like not Goku is punching and not Yamcha catches it with his hand, and they show this kind of shockwave.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're in a PS1 game. It's that kind of animation.
Wow.
And they just keep fighting for like a couple more minutes. And then they do another thing where they, at the same angle, do that same punch catch thing. And it's back to the real world.
Wow.
And you're going, what did I just watch? Because it's like very obviously cut match to the same thing. It's just so you can have a minute more of fighting between the two. Huh? It was goofy.
I can imagine.
So stinking goofy. And yet it was better than Dragon Ball Evolution.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I need to get Nate to review this film on Film Vaults. But yeah, I watched that. Of course, I watched X-Men and Lower Decks, and of course, Young Frankenstein. And I guess I really didn't get a chance to watch much more than that. So yeah, because I've been playing a lot of 14. So Jacob, what do we have in the news?
The Cellcast News with your host Jacob Heron.
Thank you, Dealit. And going into the news, so I think I mentioned this movie that was going to be coming to Apple TV Plus called Spellbound from our Skydance Animation. Well, apparently that has all changed now. So in the upcoming animated feature Spellbound will be enchanting audiences on Netflix, as Apple has opted to end the partnership with Skydance Animation. The film has been slated to premiere on Apple TV Plus in 2024. However, both partners reportedly agreed that it was not the best fit for the Apple original film slate. Variety reported that Skydance Animation, run by John Lasseter and with President Holly Edwards, will now exclusively release its animated movies directly to Netflix in an arrangement that will span multiple years, with the studio expecting slates also moving exclusively to the streaming platform. Other bit of news, let's go back to the actual site I actually use for, which is animationmagazine.net. If anyone wants to go to that, you can go check it out. Let's see. One of the most year's hottest movies, animated or otherwise, Sony Pictures Animation Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse is ready to roll onto Netflix following its $690 million box office. The visual stunning sequel will be available in the United States starting October 21st. Excellent. With additional countries and territories to be announced. Let's see. Yes. So yes, this will be coming to Netflix. So if you have not seen it yet, it'll be available on Netflix by the end of this month. So going into a little bit more news. Give me a moment as computers or as websites load. All right, so we have mentioned The Boy and the Heron movie that is coming from Studio Ghibli. Let's see. Studio Ghibli has G-Kids has announced the English language voice cast for the acclaimed Oscar-winning filmmaker Hayao Miyazaki's newest film, The Boy and the Heron, featuring the English dub of the film are Christian Bale, who will be playing I'm going to butcher this character's name, so I apologize. Sochi?
Probably.
Yeah, Sochi.
Where am I looking?
Right here.
Yeah, Sochi.
Yeah, Sochi. Dave Bautista, William Dafoe, Mark Hamill, Robert Pattinson, Florence Plum, Lucy.
That's Florence Pugh.
Florence Pugh. And many others. Let's see. So yeah, we're getting English dub of that, and Christian Bale is coming back for another Studio Ghibli movie.
Yeah. We'll talk more about him later this year.
Yeah, exactly. So as far as I understand, that's all the bit of news, unless you have something else, Drew.
I do not.
Okay.
So, time for us to talk about some X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Previously on X-Men.
Meet the sulky, over-bulky, kinda hulky superhero. A two-fisted and electrically transistored superhero. An exotically erotic and aquatic superhero. The Marvel superheroes have arrived. X-Men, X-Men, it's the day, X-Men, coming your way. Spider-Man and his amazing friends, Iceman and Firestar.
So unlike every other X-Men, okay, actually, here's a fun fact.
Okay.
Getting information, news, trivia, all this kind of stuff for our X-Men the Animated Series coverage has not been the easiest thing to do.
Fair.
I've had to go looking for in different places and make decisions and try to keep some semblance of conformity between episodes, like, you know, when characters are making their debut, when characters making their final appearances,
Yes.
so on and so forth. And for the most part, I think I've done as well as anyone could ask.
Mm-hmm.
This was the hardest one to do anything on because literally there is no information for part 2. There is information. I can get like cast lists, the
Yeah.
writers stuff, but trivia, there was no trivia. No matter where I looked, there was nothing on part 2. So if this is short, that's why.
Fair.
X-Men the Animated Series, Stormfront, Parts 1 and 2, which first aired on November 2nd, 1996 and November 9th, 1996.
Mm-hmm.
Directed by Larry Houston and Fred Miller, surprise, surprise,
Mm-hmm.
and written by Mirth J. Callow and Brooks Watchell, respectively.
Yes.
In this episode, the alien Archon comes to Earth and begs Storm to return with him to his planet to save it from meteorological chaos, which threatens his people. In the second episode, spectacular preparation for Storm's wedding to Archon proceed quickly.
Okay.
Guest cast for this includes Tony Daniels as Archon.
That's
And
it.
that's it.
Okay.
Granted, there are more people who spoke in this,
Yeah.
but this is the only name I could find.
Wow. Okay.
And of course, this is the debut of Archon, ruler of Polmachus or Polmachokus. However you say the name of this stupid planet that I'll never have to say again after this episode.
Because it's never brought up again.
Never going to be brought back up again. I haven't even seen the rest of the series, and I know it's never going to be brought back up again. The X-Men not featured in this episode are Jean Grey, Rogue, and Gambit.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we do not get to hear from...
I am Magneto, master of magnet.
You know, when we finally get to Evangelion,
Yeah.
it's going to be sad not to be able to play that sound clip anymore. Because it went from being, okay, that's funny, to, okay, Drew, you could probably stop any episode now, to, I kind of like it now.
It's becoming something. It's okay. When is he going to play that?
Yeah. And the thing is, once we finish graduation day, I won't play it again.
Unless we do
Pride of the
X-Men.
X-Men. It will get played during Pride of the X-Men, because we
Yes.
are doing Pride of the X-Men.
Yes.
But after that, unless we do X-Men 97,
Yeah. Which will probably come up. We'll probably do
we'll
it.
have to talk about it at least at some point, because
Yeah.
I'm sure both of us are going to watch it.
Of course.
But it's going to have the same issue that Lower Decks has for us now.
Mhm.
So, either way, what are your thoughts on this episode?
My thoughts on Stormfront's parts 1 and 2.
Thank goodness we did not have to hear again about Storm's claustrophobia. In fact, every location on the planet photosynthesis, or whatever the name of that planet is, was so big, there's no way that she could get claustrophobic.
So this line from a very famous animated movie now popped into my head watching this movie, and I'm probably gonna misquote you. You can't fall in love with someone on the same day.
I thought the same thing, especially since at one point I think it's no, Professor X says into the unknown.
Yes.
At one point, and then somewhere else I quoted something else from Frozen completely unintentionally.
Of course,
because this came out in 96.
Yeah.
So I'm going, how did that happen?
Oh my gosh, but it's like that's the first thing I kept thinking, because like in the first part, it's like, you know, she gets pulled into the portal by, you know, our abductor is like, you must come with me, and blah 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 blah. Be like, she's literally abducted against her will, but she's doing it willingly somehow, and she's leaving breadcrumbs.
She was abducted against her will.
Yes.
But when she got there and he finally explained himself,
Yeah.
or explained his story,
Yeah. His story.
She accepted it. It's like, okay, yeah, I can help, because just from what she's seeing, the people are in trouble. We got to stop it. She even points out what I thought was, okay, I'm going to let you finish, but I got to get this off my chest.
Okay. Okay.
The minute the word ozone popped up in this episode,
ozone. Okay.
I thought,
Oh no.
this is going to be the Save the Earth episode. That's what the meaning of this thing. Somehow this machine that he's doing is, because I already could tell it was going to be the center of the problems with the weather, and that she was going to have to work around. I was like, she's going to say some point where it's like, that was the source of all the problems. If you want to take care of your planet, Archon, you should not try to dig holes in it or something. So some make some reference to us putting a hole in the ozone layer.
Yeah.
That is where this felt like it was going
Yeah.
for
But it
three quarters
Yeah.
of both episodes. And then it was like, no, what this episode is about is slavery is bad and you should feel bad. And he lied to Storm.
Pretty much.
He even at one point said, now that the ecological tempest, that the eco tempest is taken care of. I'm like, it is going to be that. No, it's not that at all. God, I thought you were going to preach to me, show.
So you wanted me to preach to, but
I was expecting to be preached to, so I would have something more to complain about.
Oh my gosh. So the scene that got me, that didn't get me, but it's just like, what in the world are you guys doing? You're supposed to be her friend, supposed to be her family. So when our main baddie of the show has convinced Storm or Aurora that it's like, oh, be like, oh, you're my love, you're my sweet, and the whole bit. I'm like, it's like, okay, Storm is a very intelligent character, a very intelligent woman, and she's falling for this guy, like,
Yes,
head over heels.
But it makes sense why she fell for the guy.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, when she was a child, after she was both black and white in Abu Dhabi, got to point that out. That animation era is still hilarious to me.
It is.
But when she was a child, until Professor X got to her, she was worshipped as a goddess.
Yeah, agree.
That's gonna do something to you psychologically.
Yeah, Wolverine pointed that out. Yeah.
Yeah, and Wolverine, like you said, Wolverine pointed that out. And honestly, as Empress of this planet, it was feeding into that.
Yeah, agreed.
Until she finally realized what the crap was going on.
Yeah. So
I get it. I get it.
Yeah. So the part where she's convincing her friends, except Logan, because Logan is like, yeah, something doesn't smell right about this. But her friends are like, oh, this is the most amazing, because Jean, or like Jubilee's like, oh yeah, I'm totally in with this. And then you have Hank, who is more like, oh, I'm going to support my friend no matter what, be like, knowing something might be up with this. And then Scott is just like, it's like, well, be like, as long as he makes you happy. I'm like, you're not being a friend here. You know something's up. Like, like you have a family member who's doing something probably shouldn't be doing, but you let her do it anyway. What is wrong with you? I sound like Nate for some reason.
Ratmaster activated.
You're welcome, Nate. Oh my gosh, but like the plot of, oh, it's not what you think, and it's just like, no, Shirley Temple, Sherlock.
We're horrible, you know that? Yes, we are. Because we both censored ourselves this episode. And everyone knows what we were supposed to say.
Oh my gosh. It was like, okay, yeah, it's okay. This guy's obviously he's a evil dictator who is enslaving these poor people to mine this certain gem. And I'm like, Storm, be like, you're obviously a very intelligent woman, and be like, I know she's wrapped up in this, be like, oh, I'm gonna be queen, I'm falling in love with this man in one day. Seriously, woman? Seriously? For a person who's fallen in love with a woman, it's like, yeah, that took me a while. Now, granted, you asked Ashley, be like, she fell in love with me before we started dating, but that's neither here or there. But I think it's from a guy's perspective, like, what are you thinking? Falling in love with someone the first day. Yeah, again, Elsa. But and then it'd be like the plot comes very obviously what's really happening. It's like this guy is controlling the weather. He's using this device to keep the enslaved population in line and in check. And this whole device, what would you call that? The
Crystal on a tower.
Crystal on a tower.
This is one of those magic science devices.
Yeah.
You don't need to know how it works. It's not important that it works. All we know is somehow it works.
Yeah, it works.
It is somehow keeping the power transmitted to all of the slave callers.
Yeah.
Everything else. And I was like,
it powers the defenses of the planet. It's like, you mean the stupid collars.
That's what you mean.
And so they're
going,
robots.
I'm sitting there going, this is an advanced society.
Uh-huh.
You're telling me you don't have a coin-sized battery that lasts forever? Or until after the slave dies?
Yeah.
I know this sounds really bad about me trying to say, here's how to run your slave dictatorship.
Jeez.
But why does the power have to be transmitted at such a frequency that it causes an eco-terrorism disaster?
Yeah, it causes your weather to go nuts. And here's another thing with the episode. So be like, he brings Storm to his planet because her power can neutralize what the storm's going on, even though knowing that this device is causing everything. So you have throughout the entire first part of the episode, or part one at least, where it's emphasized that Storm has to be focused, and a lot of throughout the episodes of X-Men the animated series, where Storm has to be focused on something in order to maintain clarity and make sure everything doesn't go wrong.
Somehow she's able to get this to a point after she drops it for a short minute.
Yeah,
she's able to get to a point where it will stabilize.
Yeah, and she's having normal
episode.
Conversations. She's not like meditating and like doesn't blow her concentration. And there's so many other points in this where be like she's talking with Jubilee and like something's going wrong and be like, wouldn't that be the point where the storm would come back? But it never does. So it's like a plot point that came in and they dropped it.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, why don't you make it where be like Storm does this and it makes more sense, because then you just drop the initial genesis into the story by your second episode.
Let's be perfectly honest. The writing is not in this episode.
No, it's not.
This is the worst written episode of the series so far. It's a written two-part of the episode. I suspect, I haven't looked through the rest of the episodes yet. I suspect season 5 does not have the same writers that seasons 1 through 4 had.
Probably not. But I would say the plot point of where they discover like, oh, it's slavery. Oh, it's just be like, and how our main baddie just refuses to like even acknowledge a slave's life. I enjoy that to where Aurora, am I saying that right? Aurora is like giving him the advice to be like, hey, all life matters. This kind of be like, I enjoyed that part. There's parts where Wolverine is like, I know something's wrong, and everybody starts to discover the truth of what's behind this. And the line where Wolverine is like, it's like, yeah, I don't think that's a school bus going somewhere. I love that line because I think still the animation in this looks really good. It's maybe they're not off model, they look good. It's animated well.
There were a couple instances where in the old animation style you would not have seen the eyes disappear at the angle that they were at. In this instance, they would turn just a little bit and go, oh, I see Storm's eye socket, but not her eye.
Yes.
That's not creepy at all.
No, of course not.
Granted, yes, the animation, it does feel cheaper here because it does feel like they're not moving as much.
Agreed.
As they were before. And granted,
but I think it's more borderline.
Jim Lee's art style was always hard to animate.
Of course.
For this show. So what we were getting in seasons 1 through 4 was still amazing animation for what it was.
Agreed.
Here they are taking it cheaper with being, a little more stationary.
Yeah.
When stuff's going on. But I still think the art looks better. It's just not, the art is not animated as well.
Agreed. Yeah, fun note, if they would have gotten a 6th season, they would have changed the animation style over and switched from a Jim Lee style to a Joe Madureira style. which Joe Manero was a very famous comic artist in the 90s who did X-Men, whom is one of my favorite artists of all time. And I would have been like, yes, please. I would have watched it in a heartbeat. But
Well,
yeah,
we are getting a 6th season. It's just season 1 of X-Men 97.
Yeah.
And they are sticking with pretty much the Jim Lee art style.
Kind of.
It's a much newer it's based on it, but it's obviously been worked. It's been vectorized.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be vector animation.
Yeah, but overall, be like, I have problems with this story. And it's just like, okay, yeah, we understand what you're going through. It's a good message of be like, hey, you don't enslave people for your own benefit.
But we had that episode in season 1 on the episode called Slave Island.
Yeah.
Which also involved Storm and claustrophobia.
Yeah. Thankfully, we didn't have claustrophobia in this episode.
It's like the one bright spot of these. It's like we got a Storm focused episode, which admittedly we have not had since season 1.
Yeah,
where season 1 went crazy with it.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have a story. Okay, yes. Well, she was involved in Have Yourself a Morlock Little Christmas.
Yes, she was.
She was a major character in that. But this is like the first one where it's actually focused on her.
Yeah.
As just a regular character and haven't heard dealing with this. And it's like the first time that's not like saying you don't have the claustrophobia. You don't have the flashback to her as a child.
Yeah.
And this is like the only time they really mentioned the fact that she was a goddess.
Yeah.
She was worshipped as a goddess when they met her.
Yeah.
So this was like almost a breath of fresh air story wise, but like the story itself is kind of dull and pointless.
Yeah.
And not written very well.
Agreed. So yeah, that's these 2 episodes of X-Men the Animated Series season 5.
Yeah. So next week we are back to 2 one-part episodes. In fact, if I remember correctly, I'm going to double check this. I don't believe we have any more 2-part. Yeah, we do not have any more 2-part episodes of X-Men the Animated Series for the rest of the run. Except Pride of the X-Men, I don't remember how long it is.
It's like 30 minutes.
Okay, so that's just one episode.
25 minutes.
Yeah. So next week, we are going to be looking at The Fifth Horseman and Jubilee's Fairy Tale Theater.
Oh, gosh.
I know nothing about that episode, but its name. And I'm still looking going, I've seen this episode of Power Rangers. Because I just suspect it's going to be that episode of season 2 where they end up in the fairy book. I just know it. We'll find out. Of course, we're reviewing that with the book on our Book of Life episode. So join us for that. You got anything else before we head out of here?
I'm looking forward to seeing where this ends because I remember this season fairly well. Kind of well, but not really, because there again, this was the back end of this was season 5, and I don't quite. I'd be like, I remember season 3 and 4 better, but season 5 is like, okay, I recognize this, but I don't. It's not a total recall of everything, but yeah, I'm looking to see where this ends and how bad the animation gets by the end of it.
It will be interesting.
Yes, it will be.
So join us next week for those things. In the meantime, this has been Drew.
This is Jacob.
And we'll catch you in the next frame.
D-Let!
You can follow Jacob on his Facebook at Jacob B. Heron. His Facebook page, Jacob's Daily Art Corner, where he tries to draw each and every day. His Instagram at Jacob B. Heron. His Twitter at Jacob Heron. And his Letterboxd at Jacob Heron. You can find Drew on Facebook at Drew Dodgen. His Facebook page Drew's Photo Bin to see his photography. His Letterboxd page at GGeorge759. His Twitter at GGeorge759. And Instagram at Drew Dodgen. You can like us on Facebook at the Cellcast Podcast. On Twitch at the Cellcast Gaming. On YouTube at Cellcast. On Twitter at cast_cell. The Cellcast can be found at Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or anywhere else fine podcasts are downloaded from. Please rate and review us where you found us, and also on Podchaser. Email us at thecellcastpodcast@gmail.com. The Cellcast is a proud member of both the Pop Americana and Culture Box media networks. For more information, please see the link in the description. Our theme song is Drop and Roll by Silent Partner. And remember, that's Cell with a single L.